What's up, everybody? It's LG Doucette here. You're listening to The First Mint, a podcast where I talk about NFTs and the world of Web3. The podcast comes out every Monday morning and occasionally on Wednesdays. If you like this content and you want some more, feel free to visit our Twitter page at The First Mint.
Looking for apes that were the type to sorry, LG. I think we need to stop for a second.
Is it because Safa's just fucking typing away and sending shit the whole time?
Yeah, LG, I'm super sorry.
I'm gonna mute myself.
Yeah, something's happening with our Twitter account. I think that there's a chance it's been hacked. Can you just give us a sec to just figure this out?
That is the voice of SAFA and Valet Jones from Tally Labs, which is behind Jenkins The Valet and other upcoming, I'm sure, NFT projects. I had to interview them over the course of 2 days because, as you just heard, their Twitter got hacked about 20 minutes into our first interview. So they had to, you'll hear them talk about it, but basically they had to hop off the show and postpone and go work through that because they did in fact get hacked and a spam message was sent from their account. So not a good thing, but we got them back the next day to chat about some really great stuff. So you're going to kind of hear both parts of that interview. You're going to hear them explain to us what happened on their Twitter as well, which is cool. What I wanted to have these guys on for is to talk about the future of intellectual property, because as you'll hear today on the show, first of all, I love the Jenkins The Valet project, but I also think that it's an important project. I think it's a leader in what people are going to start to do with the creative license that they have with their NFTs. Because if you know this, most NFTs, and this was pioneered by Bored Apes, if you own the NFT, you can do whatever you want with it. You can put it on a brand of potato chips. You can start a coffee company with it. You can make shirts of it, or you can write a book and create an entire media company around it. And that is what these guys have done. They have a book coming written by Neil Strauss. It's going to be called Bored and Dangerous. Literally an NFT project that has a New York Times bestselling author writing the book. But not only is he writing the book about Jenkins, there are over 4,000 other people who own apes that have been able to license their apes into the book. So this to me is like one of the absolute best uses of like that power in NFTs. And I honestly hope that more people start to do really cool stuff like that. So I wanted to ask them about that. And I wanted them to tell us like basically what their journey's been like, you know, through Hollywood and trying to navigate this new paradigm and really being kind of, you know, the industry leaders there. So have a listen to my chat with SAFA and Valet Jones from Jenkins The Valet and Tally Labs on The First Mint. Ladies and gentlemen of The First Mint, we have a very special treat for you today. Two gentlemen, in fact, that are dear friends of The First Mint. One who has been on for a doggy reveal party way back before any of the bigger stuff of Jenkins The Valet, but now here to chat with us about kind of the future of intellectual property and also tell us a little bit about what is going on at Jenkins. We got SAFA and Valet Jones. Gentlemen, welcome to The First Mint. It has been a while, especially Valet, since we've had you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Who would have known that just a small doggy reveal would end up creating a relationship that gets us onto The First Mint almost a year later.
If you could actually pick up the story from there in terms of like apes come out, Valet, you're writing stories about Jenkins. SAFA, you're hanging out, you have your ape. How did you guys end up kind of getting together and crafting kind of like the bigger picture behind Jenkins?
Yeah, LG, the story starts 20 years before apes came out, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, which not a lot of people know. SAFA and I are childhood best friends. We've known each other since we were 7 years old. Started going to school together in the third grade. Not a ton of people know this, but Tally Labs is named after the pizza restaurant where we had our first play date, which was a pizza restaurant called Tally Ho. Yeah, so really like, and I think it's important to call that out because I believe that like our friendship and all of the things that we've always been doing together does come through in like a lot of what Tally Labs puts out and sort of the playful nature of everything that we like to do and just the fact that we are constantly leaning on each other and have this trust that's built in from like decades of being best friends, playing sports together, working on projects together, things like that.
What was Tally Ho a good pizza place?
We thought it was, but I think in retrospect, you travel the world, you move to New York, and you find out that actually, like, the pizza place outside of Washington, D.C. is pretty crappy.
It's one of those places where your mouth loves it, but your stomach hates it.
Oh, okay, that's a good intro to that. Did you guys just like dox yourselves by telling us about Tally Ho Pizza? Now we can go look at like the town you're from. Is that what we're gonna do?
I gotta think that there's
Many
like
Tally
a
Ho's.
million Tally Ho pizzas, aren't there?
I've
I don't
never
know.
even heard of that. Did you guys, when you guys were kids, when you were 7, do you guys have like a memory of like, Valet, you were like the sad kid on the playground and Safa came over and was like, hey, do you want to play with me? I have a football. Like, is there like an origin story for that actual friendship? Or you guys don't know? You were just sitting beside each other in class and you've just been friends since then.
I was the sad kid on the playground, and Safa came over and was like, "Hey, man, I have this football almost to a T. You nailed it."
Oh,
Safa is the coolest kid I think I've ever met. Like of all kids I'll ever meet again in my life. Like I meet like an 8-year-old on the street or something, which is sort of weird. They're not as cool as Safa. Like Safa was the man, and still is to this day.
I remember it very distinctly as well. It was 2000. We were 7 years old, which giving you some more pieces to start piecing all this together. We were 7 years old, and VJ came up to me on the playground and said, I think the future of characters and worlds are going to be built on the blockchain.
he was so cool, Valet, that it's like even when he was 7, he was like, listen, 10 years from now, someone's going to come up, this anonymous person's going to come up with this thing called Bitcoin, and then this guy who's also in diapers right now is going to come up with something called Ethereum, and we're going to build on it years after that together, you and me. Did you guys have any, like, when you were kids growing up, as you got older as well, did you guys have any, like, ambitions, or was either of you voted like most likely to do some kind of fancy thing in the future?
I think we were both like really ambitious. VJ was like one of the more ambitious people that I knew, if not the most. And VJ, not to like put more pieces together for you to like dox yourself, but I felt like you were always like when you felt like you were stagnant, you always tried to put yourself in like more challenging situations, whether it was like a better school or a better college, and like I felt like you were always sort of trying to like level up.
That's kind of you to say. I think that that's true. And if I guess we're going to go back and forth, LG, and do like the VJ Safa like compliment rally. Safa is he makes it happen, right? And so I think we were both really ambitious in different ways. Like I like really wanted to get the best grades and wanted to go to the best school, and I wanted to make sure I raised my hand like before anyone else in class raised their hand, like all these weird little things that I thought were like, what you were supposed to do or something. Mm-hmm. And all of those things were also true about Safa, except for the fact that he creates stuff like out of thin air. He would just like make what was cool at school like cool. Like he would just decide one day that like now we were all gonna like wear these sneakers, or like when you thought something was weird, like he was like so ahead of the game on like collecting sneakers. Like no one was collecting sneakers, but he was like, I think sneakers are really dope. And then next thing you know, like 2 years pass and everyone has sneakers.
Right.
And so I was always really like, I really admired that about him. And I think we have like a ton in common, and it makes sense why we're friends. But I also have always appreciated that like sometimes if I'm trying to be like really dramatic, I say that like I think that Safa and I are sort of two sides of one brain. And I think that that's true. And I think that Tally Labs in a lot of ways is like a reflection of the two of us being like this puzzle piece that fits together.
Cool. Okay. Safa, do you have a rebuttal to that? I like the idea that you're the trend maker in like 3rd grade, that it's like, why are you guys licking your chips that way? And it's like, cause that guy's doing it, like it's like, or I don't know if any ate Oreos weird or juice boxes backwards.
Why are you
or something.
licking your chips that way? That's hilarious. Also incredibly kind words, and I just want to let them sit there, and I don't want to rebut them. One fun like piece of color to add that's just more of like an anecdote is that when I was to VJ's point about me liking to collect sneakers, when I was 12, I grew early, like I developed sort of early, and so I was 12 years old with a size 12 shoe, and and like I'm still a size 12 shoe, and so that's resulted in me just having like fire like retro kicks from like 2000 and early 2000s,
Oh man,
because I can just still wear them all.
dude, that's so good, man.
I I have this memory where like we were probably 12 years old playing in a middle school basketball game, and there's like a loose ball, and it's like a bunch of 12-year-olds are like diving on the ground to try to pick up this loose ball, and Safa just reaches down with this like massive hand and just like palms the ball and picks it up off the ground. It was like when Kawhi Leonard like steals the ball with one hand, like and I remember like I was sitting on the bench and I was looking out at it and I was like, that did not just happen in this like seventh grade basketball game.
Oh shit, man. I feel like at some point, like the Jenkins Empire is gonna have to tell this story specifically of just like, I don't know, VJ, you go to reach for a football and then like a man hand and man foot like steps in front of you and it's actually just a kid your size who's your friend, but he's got like Shaq hands. So at some
Exactly.
point, please license your own origin story because that's already got some cool shit in it. Guys, I'd love to kind of like fast forward, and I feel like I already know where this question's going. Of like, how did you guys land on choosing to build around apes, or that even being like the part that you were going to collaborate on? And I'm just going to just assume that it was Safa who first put VJ and everybody else in his circle onto NFTs, from what I'm hearing here as the trendsetter. But tell me a little bit more about that part of the process. Like I'm assuming early mid 2021.
Yeah. Safa 100% put the friend group onto apes. He put the friend group onto NBA Top Shot as well. We're former basketball players, basketball fans, and so many of us came into the space through Top Shot, which I'm sure LG is really anybody's story if they were in the space in like early 2021, late
Oh yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
Safa moved into apes, and I remember that he sent me a screenshot, or sorry, a video recording of his DMs on Twitter, and he it was just like 100 apes who were like DMing him, being like, "Welcome, brother ape, ape noises, ape follow ape, all of these things," um, and it was just like absurd. Like I couldn't believe it. And I'd never seen like a community like that where like people were just so like fervent,
Mhm.
and I was encouraged to jump in. And so at the same time, like Safa and I were spending a bunch of time together. We were interested in the NFT space. We were thinking about things that might be fun to do together in this space, just like as like a side project, something like that we would enjoy working on together. And we had realized that all these people had CryptoPunks at the time, and Bored Apes right around the time that Safa got in. And they would use like their profile picture as like their own PFP on Twitter. So you'd be like LG with an ape or something. And we thought to ourselves, it could be really interesting to buy an ape and make it its own character. Like some of these like really look like they've got stories to tell.
Mhm.
And so we specifically sought out an ape on the secondary market who looked like they had a story to tell.
Right.
And ultimately, I bought Ape 1798 for about zero point 0.4 ETH, because it stood out as just like Ape 1798, now known as Jenkins the Valet. It looks like a valet. Like there's so much there. He's got the vest, he's got the hat, and like credit to Yuga Labs, right, and what they did with the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Those NFTs are like, they're really distinct, and it was a significant step up in the fidelity of the artwork from like CryptoPunks. So you couldn't really imagine building a character around a CryptoPunk, but you could around a Bored Ape, and obviously there have been hundreds of profile picture projects that have come out ever since. But the inspiration to get into apes first came from Safa doing it as himself, right? His his doxed version of himself, and then ultimately like this belief that that it was the right inspiration to try to like create a character around of, where all we wanted to do was like contribute to the space with sort of some fun stories.
I didn't realize that you bought the ape. I thought you minted it.
No, bought the ape on the secondary market. We were looking around, um, looking for apes that were the type to sorry, LG. I think we need to stop for a second.
Is it because
We
Safa's just fucking typing away and sending shit the whole time?
Yeah, LG, I'm super sorry.
I'm gonna mute myself.
Yeah, something's happening with our Twitter account.
Oh.
We I think that there's a chance it's been hacked. Can you just give us a sec to just figure this out?
We can restart a different time too if you want. If you guys got to
Cool. I'm so sorry this is happening. Give us one
it's
sec.
okay. It's okay. It's okay. All right, guys. It is day 2 of recording the future of IP with the guys from Jenkins. We got a little bit interrupted yesterday with you guys having your Twitter hacked, which is an absolute nightmare of mine with First Mint, and I can't even imagine what that's like. But I did get a little taste of it, hearing it in your voices yesterday. Can you guys? It's been about 24 hours since that happened. You guys have recovered. Can you walk us through what happened yesterday in the aftermath?
When that kind of stuff happens, like it is a little blurry, because it's stressful, right? And you go from like you're hanging out on the First Mint, everything's great, to like the worst possible thing has just occurred to you, which is that Jenkins the Valet, like certainly our biggest account and our most important piece of IP under the Tie Labs umbrella is hacked, and so it's tough. It's not the first time we've dealt with something like this. Our Discord was hacked in December of 2021. And the feeling, just to be like transparent for all the listeners, the feeling is like very much the same. And it's sort of helpless. Like nobody like hits you up and just says like, hey, you've been hacked. And like, these are some good ideas for how to like get back on top of it. You just find out in one way or another that you like don't have any control of anything that you usually have control of. And so, yesterday, and I'm sure LG, we're talking about how some of day 1 of the podcast will be included. You can probably hear Safa typing in the background because you're just like feverishly trying to figure out what's going on. It's like, hey, like I've been logged out. Are you logged out? Oh my God, I'm logged out too. Like, right?
I think LG thought I was just being a dick. Like
I
was
did,
just, like, typing
honestly, but I was like, no, but I didn't think about like you're being a dick. I was like, listen, these guys are busy, and I get it. Sometimes people got to cut interviews short because they got to take a phone call or whatever. So it's like I've dealt with that a lot, and I was like, man, Safa's like, this guy's so busy, he can't even take like half an hour to chat with me. And I was literally going to interrupt and be like, listen, dude, you do whatever you need to, but can you just mute in between? But then, naturally it was appropriate because you were being invaded, which is awful.
Yeah. And it's funny because you actually don't know that you've been invaded because at the time that we were logged out of our accounts, like the bad actor like hadn't tweeted yet, like nothing had been posted as a scam. And so the first thing that we're trying to do while we continue to have the conversation here is hit up all of the other members of the team who work on marketing and social and go to market to find out if someone has changed the password or anything like that. All of those things are hard because we've got two-factor authentication set up on the device level. There's really no way that like somebody could have had access to like what the like 2FA code would have been. The email address associated with the account wasn't compromised. If you go back and you look at the admin console and you look at the audit log. And so it's really confusing because like all of these possibilities are running through your head. It's like what has possibly happened that would lead us to be logged out of these accounts? And you have to chase down like every possible loose end. It was simpler when our Discord was hacked because pretty quickly we figured out what had gone wrong. And so even though we felt helpless and we were locked out and all of these things, we knew like that we could sort of attack a solution like in a very specific direction. Whereas yesterday it was like, whoa, like this thing is happening, it's bad, and we're not even really quite sure like how it could have happened, one. And so because of that, like how do we get back on top?
Dude, that was crazy too, because you're like, our Twitter's been hacked, and then you guys logged off, and I was like, oh shit, and I went and looked at the Twitter, and I was like, there's nothing here, and I was so confused. I was like, and then that's such a terrifying feeling, be like, we've been locked out, and you know that like this like scam message is coming, and that there's like nothing, or you're trying to find something you can do about it, and that's terrifying.
For sure. The timing was like incredible, and credit to Safa who was on the account and saw it like almost right away, because we were able to alert our community in Discord and on the Twitter timeline before a scam link was tweeted out. And so, we saw like the community was incredible. Like we saw my entire timeline on the Valet Jones account was like, don't interact with Jenkins, for probably like 100 tweets in a row. And I think it protected like quite a number of our community members because of that. And so shout out to like everybody involved in doing what they could.
What was the aftermath? Because I know a few users did get scammed, or they did lose some assets to clicking the link, which is super unfortunate. But I feel like you guys have dealt with it pretty well.
Yeah, once we got control of the account, we obviously were able to go through DMs, Discord messages, just see everyone who was compromised. Obviously, we were able to find the wallet of the compromiser, where all of the assets were going to, and determine essentially assess the extent of the damage, and then just sort of immediately put a plan in place to refund everyone. I think the total damage was about 200 grand. Someone lost an ape, which is horrible. Some mutants were lost. Some V friends were lost. Some other deeds were lost. Some kennel club were lost. But for us, there was never really a doubt in our mind. Obviously, we're still going to publish a postmortem, and we're still going to chat further with Twitter to really dig into what we have. And we have a theory. We don't want to share it yet. We don't want to point any fingers, but once we do that, we're obviously gonna publish a postmortem, and whether or not regardless of where it falls, it happened on our account, and it's really important that we take ownership of that, because people thought that they were getting something from someone that they trust. So.
Absolutely, and good on you guys. And the fact is, you guys took a lot of responsibility for it, and I think that's really commendable. So, good on you guys.
Silver lining is a nice segue. Real time, we actually just got verified on Twitter, so we now are.
Let's go.
What?
A blue check.
Oh, okay. So the key to getting verified is getting hacked. Shit, man, that's amazing. Congrats. I feel like that's so overdue for you guys to get verified. Like whatever all the things are to getting verified, to be mentioned in the news and all that crap. It's like you guys have been there for so long, like from being signed by CAA and everything else is just like you've been in the news for so long now. I feel like that's overdue, but okay. So let's pick up where we left off. Yesterday, you guys were taking me on a deep dive into your childhood and who does what on the team. We're talking about basically at what point NFTs came back on the radar for you guys, or when they came on the radar, and Safa being the trendsetter, the person who's always got their ear to the grounds, the sneaker master of years past and all that. And then VJ, you were telling us basically about the idea of creating that IP and doing that. What I really find, guys, honestly, and I mean this in earnest, in absolute earnest, is that I literally, when I'm talking to my normie friends, IRL friends, and I went to broadcast school, so I have a lot of friends who are they're on TV as sports anchors. They write Netflix shows. They are producers. They work in all facets of the kind of the creative media industry. When I catch up with them and I'm like, hey, listen, I'm working in NFTs now. I haven't seen you since pre-pandemic. And I explain that to them and they're like, oh, that's curious. I kind of know some stuff, but I don't really know anything. I literally use Jenkins as one of the examples, especially for them. I'm like, here's how this applies. You know what I mean? I'm like, here's what can be done is you can take, you basically have the creative rights to your asset, and it's attached in a way to this much bigger brand. And then, so it comes with kind of like a package of fans already that then are really eager to see you as individuals or as a team take that to the next level. I think what you guys are doing is quite unique in the space. And I was literally having a conversation yesterday with our chief of ops. I'm like, why don't more people do this? Why don't more people go and take like a Moonbird and instead of, make a coffee brand or a restaurant or whatever, it's like, take it further, be like, tell me some Moonbird stories, man. Like, why aren't people doing that? Question for you, VJ, from a creative standpoint, from that, is it where did the idea come from to literally start writing stories about Jenkins? Like, I know you gave us a, like, he looks like the valet, we're gonna go buy him, whatever, but like,
Right.
why that? Like, why of everything that you could do with these? Because it's like the initial like, most people are like, great, I can now make a chocolate bars with this on as the face. You know what I mean? Like, it's, people took it as a really simple, like, consumer packaged goods aspect. Where did you get the inspiration to kind of be like, no, we're actually going to create this whole universe, and I'm going to start it with these little write-ups that go out to the community?
Yeah, yeah, fantastic question. And by the way, like, thank you so much for using Jenkins the Valet
Thank
as
you.
like an
No, no, no.
example when
Thank
you
no. I
talk
don't.
to
I don't mean
normal
that to
friends.
like
Yeah,
anything like that. I mean, thank you, because I think that is. I think that
sure.
that is like. I use that as an example to inspire others, and also to kind of help people understand what I'm doing and some of the stuff that I think has like a lot of value and a lot of potential. Like, I want more people to do that. I think it's important for people to know that there's, like, especially with apes, which are so high profile and also the butt end of a lot of jokes. It's like that is like, no, 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 like, this is the kind of substance that there is there, and the kind of stuff that you're going to start to see in a couple years through books and TV, film, all that kind of stuff. That's why it's going to matter, and what you can do as an outside creator to come in if you want. So thank you. I mean that in earnest.
Still awesome to hear for sure. I mean, the answer to your question, LG, is like actually somewhat simple. I studied creative writing in college. I've always been like a creative writer. I in high school actually started a practice of writing 500 words a day, just like a habit to become a better writer. Something that is quite similar to like when you're playing sports, and we talked a bit yesterday about how Safa and I grew up together playing basketball. Like, you need to work on your game, and I love writing, and so to do that, I would write daily. And even after I graduated from college and ended up working in tech, I worked in software and product management. I still like continued the practice of writing daily. And so when we started to see that bored apes looked like characters, it was just the obvious thing for me to do. It was like, I sat down one day at the coffee shop I always sat down in, and I wrote 500 words this time, instead of it being like whatever was on my mind. And sometimes it was fantasy, or sometimes it was creative nonfiction, whatever. I wrote as Jenkins the Valet.
So you shifted your like 500. That's a very like Stephen King approach, which I very much appreciate, in terms of just like, just hammer away new creativity every day. And also, something, you ever seen the movie Finding Forrester? Also a lesson from that film in terms of being a writer. How would, like I want to kind of zoom out from that, because now we've kind of got like the genesis of the project, and I did want to talk to you guys generally about like intellectual property, and just like intellectual properties specifically around creativity in the world. Like zooming out from this, we know where you guys started, and then later in the show we're going to talk about like where you guys are right now and where you're going. When you guys approach like this world of like creative IP and developing that, what are some of your like favorite projects? Like, whether they are film franchises, projects that have just done a really good job, like taking things out of the vault, like Disney does, where it's like, okay, you can only watch Pinocchio sometimes, or whatever. What do you guys, when you think about like, hey, here's some really fantastic IP, some really great creative stuff that's been developed, and something that is protected and managed really well? What do you envision?
It's a tough question, LG. It's a really good one. I think I'm going to give you like sort of a cop-out answer. I think on one hand, like the reason that we're so excited about Web3 is because like Web2 IP has been built off of sort of like closed ownership models, right? We've heard that Disney employs more lawyers than any company across the globe, because their whole model is built off of protecting the things that they own, not letting anyone else access them, and not put their own spin on them. And it's the reason why fan fiction is such a siloed model, right? You have studios and making stuff, and then you have fans completely on the outside doing it on their own because they just want to resort to that creativity. Whereas like in Web3, that model is entirely shifted on its head. And I think a lot of credit to Yuga for saying, let's let 10,000 apes build this brand, right? As opposed to just Yuga Labs. And so to a certain extent, like, I don't think there is an awesome comp out there for like someone who's scaled IP in like a decentralized way, in the way that we want to. One little just like fun anecdote is we had an offsite in Miami about a month or two ago. We had the whole team out, and our new head of story, Emma Needell, put together an entire presentation for her vision for the story department, and the types of stories that she wants to tell. And she actually used Avatar as a case study, which like obviously like surprise, right? It's a highest grossing movie ever, but it was really incredible to hear like the way that she dissects stories, the way that she thinks about IP, and like how to bring that stuff to life. And so whatever that comp ends up being, I mean, hopefully we're the comp in the future, but I know that's not the answer that you asked for, but I think we're just like excited to sort of be on the frontier here.
I'll give you an answer on the way opposite side of the spectrum. I think that Harry Potter is the greatest franchise of all time. I think that it is an example of creativity and imagination coming to market first in sort of the smallest way it possibly could, which is a book, and spinning out into movies, merch, a whole amusement park, other franchises, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. The candies that they eat are candies that kids eat. Like, all of it is just like insane. And I think, even though surely J.K. Rowling has spent more time trying to protect that brand and keep it as her own, which is quite frankly the exact opposite of everything that we intend to do. I think that it's an example of doing something small and then like letting it be like a big bang and have it just become this thing. And obviously, like, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is not like small, but it's a whole lot smaller than what it's become now. And I think it's really inspirational how the brand has been grown.
That's such an interesting example, because it is an example of both the great and the bad, even from what you guys are saying, right? Because it's like, on one end, yeah, it's like what a wonderful story, what a wonderful world that has created so many spin-offs, and obviously, BJ, you're a huge fan. But I literally have a friend who wrote like a book, like Unofficial Guide to Hogwarts or something, and J.K. Rowling sued her. Like, and it's just like, so there's this kind of thing where it's like, well, even First Mint for a while was like Unofficial Guide to Top Shot. They didn't sue us, like there's not that we weren't selling books, but you know what I mean? Like we eventually went on to sell, like, I don't know, advertising opportunities or sponsorships or partnerships or whatever. So we still leverage that in some way. They're not going to sue us. Not yet, but you know what I mean? It's like, so that's almost like an example of the good and the bad. How do you guys approach that? Because there's a lot, I'm assuming that there's a lot that you don't know. Right. It's just like you obviously, maybe you want people to do more stuff with Jenkins and other stuff that Tally Labs is developing. But I guess maybe the question that I'm going to ask is more so for SAFA, especially you're kind of on the lawyer side of, like, Disney employs a lot of lawyers. What has this journey looked like for you guys to start to develop the parameters around both the Jenkins IP and also to work with the Bored Apes IP? In terms of, to make sure that you are doing things right, because it's nice to think about this as like, hey, it's an open free world, tell whatever stories you want with whatever you want, but it's not that simple, surely, right? And you guys are going to be, the headway here, creating this new paradigm on the back end. What does that look like, to navigate that?
It's an awesome question. We depending on like the day that you ask us, sometimes we'll tell you we're a content project, sometimes we'll say we're a software project, sometimes, most of the time, we'll say we're a legal one. That means, across blockchain law from a DAO perspective, which is something that we're working heavily on. It means obviously intellectual property. And so I saw a joke on Twitter. It's like, hiring a Solidity veteran, 7 months experience needed, right? So like similar with IP and Web3 is like no one is an expert, and certainly some of the traditional stuff like ports over, but we're all on the frontier. And I think we're all trying to figure out what it means, right? Even like, the whole stuff when Seth Green lost his ape and people were like, can he still make the show? Can he still not? All we can sort of speak to is our philosophy on IP and our interpretation of sort of the agreement and what it means. And that is that we purchased ape 1798, which is a token on the Ethereum blockchain. When we purchased that ape, his name was not Jenkins The Valet. He was a brown furred ape with an Irish boho hat and a work vest and a phenome va mouth, right? That's what he was. Jenkins The Valet is IP and name that we came up with and that we sort of placed on top of this token. And so in the same way that Batman exists as a cartoon, exists in live action, and exists in many forms, Jenkins The Valet is a piece of IP that we think can do the same. So who knows, maybe there's a world in the future where there's a Jenkins movie and the ape itself is like not even depicted. And so we feel that the IP really sits in the brand and less on the actual picture. Certainly the picture is really important, and we wouldn't be where we are if we didn't pick a Bored Ape. I truly believe that. I think we'd still be successful, but we picked the right one. But we're building a brand, right? And that brand could look and feel a lot of different ways.
Was there okay, actually I just want to jump on that, Safa, for a second. And thank you for explaining that. I love that's exactly kind of the line I was looking for, that you like see the asset you bought as like very much the asset, and then everything else you've added to it is the parts that you guys take ownership over. Is there, if let's say Apes never happened, okay, let's say all the other PFPs happened, but not Apes, and there was no, Apes a clear leader, but there was no clear leader. It's a mess of all the other ones, all vying for top spot. Is there any of the other ones that you would have chosen, or is this like this was Apes, or is it going to be something totally freaking different? Like, would you ever see Jenkins be like it's a different character? It's like one of the Devil Cool Cats, and it's like, Richie the Devil or something like that. You can use that idea if you want.
No. It depends if you're asking now or then. I think now the brand is in like a really strong place where we talk about this all the time. Like, we could launch characters from other collections, and I think that they would like be loved, right? As long as the storytelling is there and the brand is there, I think we could do that. I think if you go back to a year ago, I think we picked the right one, right? Like we have faith in ourselves. We have faith in the amazing team that we put around us, that like this was going to work. But it was a perfect storm, right? And Apes had a ridiculous rise that like surely we benefited from. I don't know, VJ, at the time, were there really any others that we were looking at? Obviously, like, we were drawn to the community aspect and the IP aspect of Apes, which were like not really done at the time. But I don't even really remember like what was popping at the time. I guess like gutter cats were starting to pop, a little bit of cool cats.
Bonsai trees.
Yeah, it's hard to say, like, because I don't really remember either. I think it's important to note for anyone who's listening, who's, sort of thinking one day they might want to try, even if it's like a radically different idea, they might want to do something as weird as like, creating a character off of an NFT. Like, Safa, we brainstormed a lot, not necessarily before purchasing 1798 and making him Jenkins, but definitely afterwards. I mean, we went back and forth on a really funny character that we had named Aspiring Chad, like they're like a nerd, but they really want to be a Chad. And there are some avatars that like look like they could be like a perfect fit. So I think if we were gonna do it again, I mean, first of all, like first and foremost, to Safa's point, we picked the right avatar, we picked the right name, and we picked the right origin story. Because there's nothing I would, trade to go back in time and try to redo it again. Like you run it 100 times. I think this has gone amazing for us. Mm-hmm. But I think if you think of the character, a lot of people can think of sort of fun. Well, I don't know. Some people have visual minds and some people have minds that are creative in another way. I think our minds are creative in another way. So Safa and I wouldn't have necessarily made up a character and then immediately just visualized what they should look like. So what NFTs did is you can think of a character and then you can find the visual that fits it really well, and you can pair those things together. And I do think we've seen that on the timeline, even for people who aren't building businesses around their characters. Bored Apewood just joined our team. He's got this whole cowboy thing going on because he either minted or purchased a Bored Ape with a cowboy hat. And you see it in the Gutter Cat Gang, and you see it in Cool Cats and Doodles and all of that. People do make characters around their avatars, and I think if you've got a great idea, you could potentially be like collection agnostic if you really felt like the avatar that you found fits. At the same time, it was, an incredible amount of luck that we aped into a Yuga asset, in May of 2021. So we rode that wave 100%, and I think still do feel amazing being a part of their collection.
Do you interact with them very much?
Yeah, we do. We used to speak to them a lot more. Obviously, I mean, you hear about the days of them, Gordon just kind of being in the Discord talking to holders, which like for sure isn't sustainable anymore. And there's higher ROI uses of their time. But yeah, they've been awesome. We're working closely with them on the book. We have sort of an agreement with them where we're able to set the book in their world and all of that. And so they've shown to be awesome partners there. They're excited about what we're doing. I think we've said this before, but Gordon last year at NFT NYC said that they believe that they're building the sandbox and that people like us are building the sandcastle. So I think that they hoped people would run with their IP in the way that we are, and they've been really supportive.
Awesome, that's great. Yeah, I assumed you did, and Yeah, that's a great analogy. I love that. Is there? I do want to kind of just take a step back for a second, guys, because I do want to get deeper into Jenkins, but maybe more. I always consider myself kind of done with a lot of stuff, so I want to circle back on the actual rights of the NFTs, and I think that that's just really important to circle back on. You guys both seem to have a really good grasp on it, so if you can explain to us in layman's terms of just like if I go and buy an ape or anything else that has this I guess is it CCOs, the Creative Commons license, basically, that you can use the asset as you please? Like, can you guys disambiguate that for us, for people that are scared of legal language like I am?
It's actually a little bit different than CC0. So there's really three models that I think exist for ownership of NFTs. The first is the old Larva Labs model. And CloneX, I think the Murakami CloneX have a similar kind of model, which is that you as a user can monetize that IP on your own, however you want, up to a limit. And then at that limit, I think for punks, it was 100K. At that limit, you have to enter a new commercial agreement with the company that created the NFTs. Mm-hmm. So in the punks case, it would have been Larva Labs. The next is really the model that Yuga pioneered, and that is anyone who holds an NFT, who can prove that they own that NFT by having it in their crypto wallet, has the complete and utter unlimited commercial rights to do whatever they want with it at any time, however they want, no questions asked, no strings attached. And then the third is CC0, which is Creative Commons, which basically just opens it up like straight up, right? And that's not a model that is exclusive to NFTs. I think recently, like Winnie the Pooh just entered the Creative Commons. I think generally speaking, it's like time-based, and I recall that like Ryan Reynolds like did a commercial with Winnie the Pooh in the last like year or something, right, like the day that it sort of moved into the public domain,
right?
And so we certainly are not fans of the first model, because although, businesses can make any decision that makes sense for their specific use case, but for us, like the thing that is really special, and I mean, look, like we our whole business is built off of the back of like the fact that we were able to do what we wanted with an NFT that we purchased, which was Ape 1798. And so we're really keen on the middle model, which is what Yuga pioneered, which basically says if you own it, you can do what you want with it. And a lot of our business, and we have 4,075 apes and mutants who are licensed to appear in some capacity, like in our first book. About 65 of them are characters in the work, a couple hundred are illustrated, about 1,000 more in a game of Where's Jenkins, and then a few thousand are in this like special version of the acknowledgements. That's made possible because the holders of those NFTs could demonstrate that they owned them using software, connecting their wallet to our website, and we check and we see that they have the token, and then we allowed them to sign an agreement that basically said we could use the IP in exchange for being put into a pool that splits 50% of net profits on the book. And so like that middle ownership model, where you uniquely have the control of like the IP that you own, is I think amazing for like consumers. It creates this entirely new engagement model where you're not just like a fan, but you're also a collaborator. And even just like a couple of days ago, one of our community members, his character is named Nicky Nichols. And there's like a whole article in like .la about Nicky Nichols. He's depicted 3 different ways in the article. And I think that stuff is possible because he owns that IP, and he was inspired to build around it.
By you guys? He was inspired by you guys?
Yeah, it would be really cool to think that we played some part in inspiring him to build, a character around his ape. He's a member of our writer's room. Nicky Nichols, the ape, will be featured as a character in our book. And so I think the fact that we were building this, and people had the opportunity to build characters on our software platform and license them to us, certainly like played a part. But we couldn't possibly take credit for, like all of someone else's creative imagination. He's a incredibly like interesting and creative person who I think would have found one way or another to try to like deepen his relationship with the NFT that he purchased.
Well, that's great. I mean, I think that that's what you guys are inspiring and kind of collecting those types of people in there in your community, right? So I think that that's like even just kind of like an after effect of that innovation is kind of that's what's happening. You guys have basically by selling the Jenkins tickets, which we're going to get into in a minute, and all the different assets, people are able to then further this, further the creative rights of their own apes and place them into the Jenkins IP, place them into the Jenkins book. That to me is also like not just are you guys writing the stories about Jenkins and developing that, but also you are, that's like the next step of the evolution process of like, hey, and we can let other apes into this book. Are there what do you guys see coming next? Like either from Tally, from you guys, or in general, like what is the absolute like what is the biggest blue sky thing that somebody could do with essentially like this new level of like creative power, right? And like VJ, like you were saying in that second tier, like I feel like sky's the limit there. Anything that comes up in brainstorms for you guys, anything you guys have seen floated around that you can share that you think is like some really giant ideas with that possible?
I think it's twofold. We're building sort of a joint media and content business, or media and software business. I'm sorry. I want VJ to speak to the software side. We started as like a character, right, and a character inside of someone else's universe, and we feel like we really understand storytelling. We know exactly what it's like to take a character, build around it, and grow it. And I think what we've done so far is we've helped other people do that with their characters, both monetarily and just from a brand building perspective. I don't think we like quote unquote, directly inspired anyone else, but I think or maybe we did. I don't want to go on the record to say that, but I think that we gave them a platform to further explore it, and we're going to compensate them for doing so, which is awesome. I think we're the perfect people to now launch our own world and our own universe, because as creators who have done it from a character side, we know exactly what we want to see from a universe and from a PFP side. So shameless plug, but like what we're building with Azerbala, we think has like cinematic universe potential, and we want to build it in a really intentional way through the lens of people who did it from a character perspective first. And everything that we do in Azerbala, we want these to feel like characters. We want to enable individual holders, whether that's IP and legal or that's creative. So for us, like our pie in the sky vision is that specifically for Azerbala is that it's like a household name, and the holders of the Azurians that make this up are, building really, really deep lore for their characters and sort of implicitly like impacting what happens in this world. And it becomes like truly a community generative like franchise. And I know we can talk about Azerbala at length, but equally, if not more important, is what we're doing from a software perspective, and actually building the tools that allow people to take their characters and actually and build them. And we're super excited about the team that we have staffed against that. So I want VJ to speak about that because he's far more suited than I am.
Yeah, for sure. I think the most important thing is there's no like media and software, like it's all one thing. Like you have to build on every front at the exact same time in a really connected, really cohesive way, to make something like special. And your community isn't like, oh, the media was really great, but the software was lacking, or vice versa. Like it's just an experience. And so, credit I think is due to the entire team, and I think we've assembled an incredibly diverse and versatile team that can stretch across almost from like any position, can stretch across the entire business to imagine something that would be useful anywhere. And that's like a really important point about how we view Tally Labs and like what it is that we do. Specifically though, like building software is hard, right? Like there's a reason that it's like hard to hire positions that are like good at building software and good at designing it and doing all of those things. And for us, like generally the principle that we have is that crypto, I think started and was super technical. The word, cryptocurrency then made it very much like sort of a financial tool, or the types of people that were interested came from finance backgrounds. And now with NFTs, we're really seeing like the consumer and like the cultural ramifications of what crypto can be. And culture moves a lot faster than like product building does. And so we've got all these people now who are coming with like a consumer point of view, and they're entering the crypto space, but there's not really like software that supports like those types of people because there hasn't been that user before. And so what we're doing with Azurbala, with the writer's room, with anything we build around Jenkins the Valet, and with anything else that we make again in the future, is we build from like a consumer point of view out. And so our backgrounds are from consumer tech. The team that we've hired comes from consumer tech. The people who we look to hire have backgrounds from consumer tech, because I think the thing that is really most important is like, forget crypto. We're trying to make a really special experience for like a globally distributed just group of people who are interested in defining and helping contribute to the creative direction of like the next sort of massive hits, or at least that's what we hope it'll be. And so to do that effectively, like it has to be easy to use and it has to be fun to use.
How do you, I like what you're saying about like building a team then and helping them kind of understand that. How do you said that so eloquently, BJ, and it sounds wonderful. How does that implement into like then work culture? Because how big is Tally Labs now? I think you guys have quite a few people working, and I just want to kind of understand. It's like how do you kind of approach that with a team that's coming with a lot of different expertise, but is kind of going into a world that doesn't really exist yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there are 8 of us full time right now. We are moving quickly towards 10, 12, 15 is I think where the team will get to in the nearish future. We have a set of values at Tally Labs that we have posted onto the Tally Labs Twitter account that people can see. We screen aggressively for those values when we interview people and when we meet them. And I think most importantly, when you get a group of people who are like really diverse in every way, including in like skill set, you really need to find like 3 things that have to be true. They need to be like highly competent at the thing that they do. They need to be highly collaborative, and they have to have like very low ego. If those things aren't true, it can be really hard, because all of a sudden it can be like, well, this is my thing and my thing's good, or like, it can breed competition, or it can breed like a lack of communication, or any of those things. And we're fortunate right now, like we're a super small company. There's 8 of us. And so when we think about it, it's a lot more challenging than when there were 2 of us. So I don't want to like minimize the fact that 8 is a step up for sure. But every time we add a new person to our team, we're still talking about like changing the mix by more than 10%. And so we can be really, really deliberate about like how we interview candidates, who meets candidates. Everybody on the team interviews every candidate that we are considering bringing on at this stage, because we are trying to all suss out if that's a person who can come in, do their job in a highly competent way, collaborate incredibly well, and do it without ego. And so I think if we like continue to do that and can find a way to scale that to go from 10 to 100, like, if we can, it'll serve us really well. I'll say one more thing. I believe wholeheartedly that it comes from my relationship with SAFA, because there is no one in the world outside of my wife who I like trust as much as SAFA, like straight up. And it's just like that comes through everywhere. I would literally trust SAFA with my life, and I know the same goes in reverse. And so we are constantly passing each other the ball. There is no time where like he's kind, to say that I should talk about the software or something. If I like got hit by a bus and SAFA needed to talk about the software would be incredible. And so like I think we know that trust exists. The team sees that trust exists, and it sort of breeds a culture of like everybody trusting each other that same way.
Wow, Safa, how does that make you feel, man? That's deep.
Are we allowed to curse on this podcast?
Fuck yeah.
Fuck, man. I'm going to cry over here. Love you, BJ. I feel the same way.
Oh, man. That's crazy. I mean, I have to say, like, you guys doing this as childhood friends, like, that is, that's like some entourage shit right there, but where you're both Vince and both Eric at the same time. So that's commendable, man. It's that's really cool to see, and good to see that connection being kind of like at the genesis of a lot of what you guys are doing. I want to kind of skip ahead because I want to hear some of the nitty gritty like Jenkins story, and I mean like specifically, give us a preview of what's coming, and maybe save that for the end, a little nugget of what's going to come, and what you guys are going to do with that sweet funding round. But I want to hear some of the back end stories, right? Because we had, you guys were writing Jenkins, and then it was the NFT drop last summer, and then a couple months later, signed by CAA, and I feel like so much has happened behind the scenes. I have a T-shirt that says "We are book people," which, from what I understand, is like an email that a publisher wrote back to you, telling you that what your idea is fucking stupid, and that they're book people, and that they're never what you're doing is never going to work. Give me some of those sweet stories, man. From NFT drop to today, like what has gone on behind the scenes at Jenkins that people want to know or might not know that you're able to share.
No. The book people one is phenomenal. We can add just like a little bit of color to that. Before we signed to CAA, we had a vision for the writer's room. We had a vision for decentralized content creation. We had a vision for a novel that was entirely voted on by the community with the characters owned by the community. We didn't really know how to get there. We knew that we needed an awesome author. We had never spoken to an author. We had never put an offer forth to an author. We didn't even know like what an offer to an author would look like. And so we made a spreadsheet, right, of like 100 to, probably even more, probably like 200 of like some of the best authors out there. And we were like, let's just reach out to all of them. No after no after no. Some were like friendly, some were non-responsive, some were like horrible. Obviously the worst one was someone saying that it was an agent saying none of the authors that they work with would ever do anything like this because they're too busy doing the things that made them what they are, writing, because they're book people, sort of implying that like we're not. And that lit a fire under us in like a really big way because VJ is the biggest book person I know, first and foremost. But like we're book people, and we're not we're not iterating on. Like we're iterating on the storytelling for sure, but like what we're really iterating on is like the distribution, in a lot of ways. We're iterating, I shouldn't even say that. We're iterating on both, but we're challenging the concept of like what a book is, right? Like we're building an e-reader. You can experience this in a more interactive way. Like it's not your typical ebook, et cetera. But like what I'm trying to say is that I think we're being really respectful of storytelling. And I think that like we're pushing it forward in like a really fun way, and we're embracing that industry, right? And then finally, so that happened obviously, and then we sent an offer to an author, and the agent, or not an offer, we sent like an inquiry, and the agent gets back to us and is like, okay, send us an offer. And then at that point, we were like, oh, this is actually real. This is happening. Someone got back to us. We didn't even think this far ahead. Like, what does this offer look like?
It's so funny.
Yeah, we're like, oh wait, someone actually responded. And so then at that point, an agency wasn't even totally on our radar. We have some good connections like in that world, but it became very clear at that moment that we needed a partner right deep in Hollywood. At the time, we were only thinking books, but really like across film, TV, podcasts, brand partnerships, everything that could help us navigate this. And so we got connected to CAA through a mutual friend. Started off really as just sort of an introductory, can I get some advice conversation? And they fully just got it. Little did we know they were building out like a dedicated Web3 department with some studs on the team. And they saw the vision right away. They're like, we don't just want to work together on books. We want to work together across everything. And I think we were the first like NFT character that they signed. I don't know if it was the first project, but they've been awesome ever since.
Man, that's amazing. So what is CAA doing for Jenkins? Like I do not have ever worked in that capacity of anything. So what is their role within everything here?
Yeah, technically, so they represent Tally Labs. Obviously, Jenkins is the largest piece of IP that we have. They negotiated the deal with Neil, from terms to all the way to contract, right? There's a ton of sort of legal complexities that go into a collaboration agreement on a book in terms of what happens to the book when it gets adapted, stuff like that. Not something that we could have done on our own, so they completely handled all of that. They're sort of our line to everything Hollywood. So they're setting up meetings with production companies, with studios, with buyers, with other CAA clients on the creative side, right? Emma Needell is a CAA client, so we met her through them. They introduce us to our partners at Salt Audio. And so they're sort of our liaison and our bridge into all things entertainment. And they're our advocates, and they make sure that we don't get screwed over. They make sure that we're, they've not to spoil anything. They've made a couple recent intros that we think can be really, really big from a partnership perspective. And so they're like an extension of us. They're not like driving strategy. Like we're sort of, us and our team are deciding where we want the business, where we want Jenkins, where we want everything to go. And then once we have that, they're amplifying it, right? And they're helping us get there quicker through business development and partnerships and all that.
What's it been like to work with Neil?
Neil is a legend. He is like, he's awesome. I mean, as a book person, first of all, to get to spend time like with Neil Strauss and to see like him writing is truly incredible. The first time we ever saw a draft, I just was like blown away. Like what comes out for him in like that, that guy's been writing 500 words a day for probably like 10 lifetimes, I bet you, for how good he is. But I think what's most interesting about Neil is that he truly is a student of the space. He's been in the space for a very long time. He's here for the right reasons. He was here before we met him. He'll be here after we, finish this book. And so he really gets it. His writing is funny because he's funny, and he's got this really interesting perspective on how things work. And it's just like, I think for all of the writers' room to be able to participate in something where you've got a 10-time New York Times bestseller doing it has been like really fun. And I can say that like Neil Strauss has, earned every single one of those bestsellers, probably multiple times over.
Man, yeah, that must be wild to even think about his process. Stay creative every day, but that's cool. Yeah,
it must be insane.
Well, but I'm sure it's pretty casual for him at this point, right? It's like he's a New York Times bestseller, right? So that's pretty sweet. Guys, we're getting close to the end here. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'm a Jenkins holder. Love the approach you guys are taking here. It's great to hear kind of the philosophy behind everything, and also a little bit of the inner workings of everything that's happened in the last year. What is coming next? What is coming next for Tally Labs?
Yeah, it's gonna be a Tally Lab summer where obviously the market's like in a weird place. We haven't had a mint since last August, so we've spent the last 10 months just building a community, building the following, and really just kind of like cementing ourselves as people who are here for the long run. And so we're excited to launch products like through this and launch products that are fun and like bring people value. So we're like full steam ahead regardless of sort of what's going on. What's coming first is Bored and Dangerous, which is our novel with Neil Strauss. As we mentioned, it's fully voted on by the community. It occurred in the writer's room. 4,075 apes and mutants are featured in this book, from main characters down to mentions in the acknowledgments. All of them will be receiving royalties, and we're really excited about what that'll mean for sort of like IP and like licensing in the space. And we have some other, on the tech side, just really fun licensing products that we're going to be rolling out, like a sort of a two-sided marketplace that we think has a ton of potential. And those are all things that we wouldn't have known were needed unless we sort of built them for ourselves, right, in creating all of this content. And so, the book is coming on July 11th, which we have announced, which we're super excited about. So we're coming up on it. The book is not really just a book. One, it gets you into a custom-built e-reader that we've sort of built entirely internally by ourselves. There is like not a great long form literature reading solution right now. And it's not going to feel like a Kindle. It's going to be interactive. You're going to get to be able to see the characters that are involved and stuff like that. And so, again, like not something that we would have known was needed unless we sort of dug in, and we're building it. We have an awesome team that has built like products at the highest level who's doing it. So we're excited for people to get to read the book in that capacity. And then there's a bit of decision tree that comes with the book. So you can burn it for the ability to mint an Azur root, which is the mint pass. It's a sacred and holy item in Azurbala, and you're going to be able to take it to the monastery, which is where the monks live, and redeem it for an Azurian. There's some really fun game theory around the Azur root, where the longer you hold it, the more benefits will then accrue to your Azurian when you do decide to mint it. So it's a bit of I don't want to say like a moonbird's nesting. I think it's pretty different, and we've been working on it for a while, but that's probably the closest thing like that's out there.
Who develops this stuff? Who comes up with the creative on that stuff?
Our team. We feel like we have a good sort of pulse on the market, but everyone, like, we have a really, like, there's defined roles, but in some senses the org structure is like very flat, and that like a philosophy that we have is like good ideas will come from every department. They won't just come from software. They won't just come from design. They won't just come from marketing. Like, if someone has a good idea, there's no egos, and like, we're going to build it. So I don't remember who came up with that. Emma, for sure, by the way, is also like really, really integral to the lore and everything that you'll see and feel in Azerbala. And then we have an awesome Solidity developer named Fubar, whose brand has grown quite a bit in the space as well. Nice. And he's a beast. And there's like very few things that he can't build.
I will say that there was a time, a long time ago, when Matt and I were sharing sort of our initial idea for Azerbala. I don't know if it had even been named yet. Like, I can't recall how far along we were, where we were talking to one of our advisors, and we expressed it. And all they said was, "I want what you guys are smoking." So I do think, we've been messing with all of these crazy ideas that can be made possible with NFTs for, now 18 months longer. I think, if we think about what we were brainstorming all the way back in the early Top Shot days. And so it's been a long time coming, this project, and we've surrounded ourselves with like an amazing team. Like, to Matt's point, like what Emma has done from like a crazy idea where all you can say is, "I want what you guys are smoking," to something that is like so digestible and so exciting is like truly incredible.
Very excited for you guys. Really, really excited for the Tally Labs summer. We've come to the end of the show, and what happens at the end of the show is we play a game called Would You Rather. So I'm going to ask you guys 2 questions, and you know how it works. Basically, you tell me which option you would rather, okay? And they are based on things that you guys told me during this session. Okay, you guys ready? Would you rather that Jenkins or some kind of Tally Labs property gets nominated for an Oscar 5 times in a row and lose each time, but it's nominated? That's pretty freaking good. Or that the leading Tally Labs property of everything you guys develop is your nerd to Chad concept.
Does the nerd to Chad concept win an Oscar?
It wins 1 Oscar. That's it. Season 1.
Oh, give me the trophy.
Season 1 wins 1 Oscar, and that's the only thing anybody ever hears about that you guys make.
I mean, it's hilarious. I get why this is a tough one. I would still take the trophy, I think.
Okay.
I like the trophy.
Okay, you want the trophy. Okay, yeah, you want the okay. A very big time creator wants to come and lend their IP that they've created to Azerbala. And they want to work with you guys. They want to work with whatever creative license you guys require. They're down. They want some of what you're smoking. Would you rather it is J.K. Rowling with the entire world of Harry Potter that she has created, or it's George Lucas, and somehow he's bought Star Wars back from Disney? Let's just pretend he has. And that's the decision.
Probably a cop out. Well, no, actually not a cop out. I think JK's pretty controversial these days. I think she's said some things that aren't cool. I have to go back and look. I remember reading that in the news. And Star Wars is certainly nothing to sneeze at. So I think I would take Star Wars. And George Lucas, although I have immense respect for Harry Potter, but I just have to do some research before I answer that, because we want to make sure we're in bed with good people.
Yeah, that's fair. VJ?
I know for a fact that JK has said some things that we certainly don't stand by at Tally Labs.
All right.
And I stand by my point that I think it's the greatest franchise of all time, but I think I'm with George.
You get to go hang out on his ranch, drive golf carts around. It's pretty sweet. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty sweet, man. Yeah. All right, guys. This has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for making time, and thanks for making this a two-part interview that I think is going to be a real good one. All right. Cheers, guys. Thank you. And that is going to do it for us today, folks. It is the middle of the year, the middle or the kickoff of the summer. Hope you were getting outside, having a good time. And otherwise, we'll see you next time on First Minute.